Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutshall with Real Things Living. Today, I have two guests. It's Chuck and Hannah Keels. They are the founders of Living Hope Cancer Foundation. They are based in Arizona. Can you say hi, Chuck and Hannah?
Hello.
Hi, hello everybody, and thanks for inviting us on the call.
I appreciate it. I think this is really cool. Your backstory is very intriguing, and I like it. And I'm so glad you came on. And can you, for people who are listening, these two met and got married after they were diagnosed with cancer. And I just think that is such a cool, very hopeful. I'm a hopeful person. You got to look at hope, right? Sometimes to help your mindset. Can you tell how you guys met?
We try to share and cultivate hope every day.
That's why we named it Living Hope Cancer Foundation.
Absolutely.
To live with hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, we're on a lot of different support groups, and we love sharing that part of the story because people go through cancer, and if they're single, they're wondering if they're ever going to meet anybody, and if they're married, it causes a lot of problems and a lot of rocky road. So we love to be that transparent couple that love each other, that are best friends, that share life together. And life together might mean cancer. It might mean,
Your journey is different, right?
Yeah. But it's
the best way to start the story is for Chuck to tell his backstory.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll share just like kind of a snapshot of how we even got, our diagnosis and how we even got into this world dealing with cancer, which if you would have asked me 6 years ago, I would laugh. I'd say there's no way, there's absolutely no way. So what happens is I'm designing landscaping and swimming pools all over the Phoenix Valley. Being an Ohio boy that moved out here 26 years ago, I thought it was a little slice of heaven. I'm in people's yards outside in the beautiful sun all year round, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. And what happened was I started getting sick. And when I say that is, I'm pretty in tune with my body. I was a gym guy my whole life. I was into nutrition. I even grew my own wheatgrass at one time and would trim it with a pair of scissors and put it through the grinder and drink that. So I was pretty healthy guy. So what I meant by I started getting sick was I just was tired. And then I started noticing I started losing a few pounds. And it started a little bit of pain. And what happened was, I always tell everybody that I have what they call the male mentality. Oh, I'll be okay tomorrow. And then you wake up and my deal was not okay tomorrow. It was actually a little bit worse. And what happened was I started using aspirin, which I wasn't a big aspirin taker. And within a few weeks, the pain in my back actually started outrunning the aspirin. And so at that time, I knew it was time to go get it checked out. So after I took my boys out to eat on a Friday night, I went to the emergency room near me, and my world was completely turned around and changed and shocked. I was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer, and it started in the prostate, and it goes to where it's fed. And it was in my bone marrow and lymph nodes all over my body. And the doctor actually said, I can't believe you just walked in here. You have cancer in 90% of the bones in your body. And the scans would blow your mind. I mean, it just, when I show people the picture of the scans, they see the black, which is cancer in the bones, and they just can't believe it. And so at that time, they said, we're sorry, there's nothing the medical industry can do about this at this time because it's so bad. And you're stage 4. And they sent me home. They said, just go home and be at peace. And that night I get a ring on the doorbell, and it was 2 hospice nurses. So in 2015 I was actually placed in hospice, and we all know what that means. And
wow.
My head's spinning. I'm sick. I'm in pain. I'm on meds, because before I wasn't on meds, but now I'm on liquid morphine, doing a shot of that about every 5 hours to just numb myself up. And so I look at my boys and I say, I had 2 boys, single dad. What do you do with this? What do you do if you've got 3 months to live? And so we basically said, let's get back to Ohio, because I didn't know how much longer I was going to last. And at that point, what happened was we gave away everything we owned that week, because I'm not trucking all my stuff across the country if I'm melting away. And so we gave it all away. And then we were going to catch a plane on Sunday morning. And I got up that morning to go down the hall to the bathroom. We stayed at a hotel by the airport, which was just going to be easy, just to jump on a plane the next day and get to Ohio. And I walked down the hall and I heard a popping sound and I hit the floor and I was in excruciating pain. And I couldn't even get a good deep breath. And the fire department, 911 was called. The fire department showed up. 8 guys get me onto a hospital gurney and into an ambulance. And I could feel every bump, the pain in my back. It was going all the way up my spine into my head. And I was taken to the closest hospital at that time, which was different than the hospital that I was diagnosed at. So at this hospital, they said, we run our own tests. And they start running tests. And they came back and they formed a team, I call it. It was a cancer doctor, a house doctor, 2 spinal surgeons, and the house administrator became my medical team. And they did their own scans. They came back in 2 days. All this was going on. The pain was still ridiculous in my back. Every time they slid me over to the next little hospital gurney to take me over to another scan or another x-ray or another test, it was unbelievable. I couldn't even budge. The pain was that bad, even on ridiculous pain meds. And so the team comes into my room and they're holding my file and they're looking at all the scans and they go, okay, well, we have a plan. And I go, okay, well, what's the plan? Because I've already been put in hospice, you know? And they said, we want to do emergency surgery tomorrow. We want to stop the testosterone production in your body because it's feeding the cancer. And we want to put your port in your chest to take chemo in. And we figure if we can stop the feeding of the cancer and start killing the cancer, you know, you've got a chance. That's your best chance. What are you going to say? I'm like, let's go. That's a fight's a fight, right? Let's get it on. So the next day I was wheeled down to surgery. And I remember it was ridiculous. I remember every light in the room. I remember every nurse and doctor's name. It was like it was yesterday, even on the pain meds and stuff. And I went through 2.5 hours of surgeries. I'm back in the recovery room. I'm awake now. My docs come in and they explained how the surgeries went perfectly. They explained how my follow-up would look after I left the hospital. And so, you know, I'm just laying there wanting to go upstairs and see my family. And I'm laying there watching everything going on around me. And for no reason at all, the entire room turns weird cold. And I'm like, what just happened? You know, and I'm thinking, I look down to the right because there's double doors down there. And that's where I thought somebody left the doors open. That's where they were running the patients in and out for their surgeries. And I said, somebody left the door open and let the cold air come through here. And I look down and the door's shut. And I'm like, what is going on? And I come back to my left and I kind of jump and I'm laying on this hospital bed. I'm looking at a brown robe, white scarf, bearded face, and I'm flipping out. I'm looking at Jesus. He's looking at me. I'm an old Catholic boy from Ohio that don't even go to church anymore. And his foot does a right, like a half step towards me. His right hand reaches out and touches me on the shoulder. And I don't see his mouth move, but I hear in my head, I got you.
Oh, wow.
And then he's gone. And then he's gone. I'm laying there by myself. I'm laying there like, what just happened? Was it a doctor? Was it a nurse? Was it a janitor in the room? What was that? And in my head, I knew I was in the presence of Jesus. And so basically that day, some really amazing things happened. The first thing that happened was the nurses came in to give me my meds and they said, here's your bone strengtheners, here's your steroids for shrinking the tumors, here's your, now your pain meds are as needed. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how bad's your pain right now? 10 being the worst. And I sit up in the bed and I've already fitted for this back brace because of my spinal collapse. That was the popping sound, was my back broke. I'm fitted for this brace. I sit up in my bed and I'm looking at him and I'm like, I don't feel any pain. And they're like, order something, you know, you just broke your back. You just had surgery. You know, you're on liquid morphine for your cancer, order something. And I said, I don't even like taking aspirin. I don't want to take a drug if I don't have to. And so they said, here's the nurse button. Call us when it starts, and it will. Call us when it starts. And from May 26, 2015 to sharing this story with you right now, Bridget, I never took another pain med.
That's awesome.
Isn't that crazy?
First thing that came to my mind when you said that you had the bone cancer, does that make you more susceptible to fractures?
Oh, yeah, I was falling apart. That's
Right.
what
And
the,
that's kind of like osteoporosis, kind of in a way, it's extreme. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. You know, they call it metastasis because the cancer's starting to work on the bone, and all the damage that was done on the bone was all the pain I was feeling. And the area that was the worst was my lower spine. And finally, it just said, nope, I can't hold you up anymore.
Oh
And
my gosh.
that's what fractured, and I hit the floor. And I had a lot of metastasis in my pelvis, my spine, and there was even a little bit in the back of my brain. So I was saturated.
That's definitely amazing. I mean, in a way, if you think about it, it's a good thing you fell in that hotel.
Yeah, yeah.
You fell, and it was maybe, like you said, Jesus came to visit. Maybe that was, he made you fall.
Had it planned out, I guess,
Wow. I
So
think it's so
I
cool.
start healing so fast that the doctors are blown away. I did 6 months of chemo. 3 months into the chemo, they do the first scan, and my doctor's just, they're smiling. She's from Pakistan, beautiful little fire plug. She's very research oriented, just a really, really good cancer doc. And she's smiling, and she says to me, she says, I've studied cancer all over the world. I've never seen anything like this before. She said, your journey's not of medicine, it's miraculous. Your scans look like a normal, healthy guy.
I've got chills right now. I'm not kidding. I'm glad I'm wearing a sweater. No, it's just, their story is amazing. And it gives people hope. And that's I have that in my living room. I have my mom bought it for me, like says hope, and it lights up. Because I had to see that too,
I
just
love
as
it.
a reminder.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah.
that's amazing. And you sold everything. And so
Yeah.
what were your sons doing?
Well, we have a cousin in town here that they were staying with. And then someone would bring them over. I actually went from that hospital, John C. Lincoln Hospital, where this happened, for 10 days. The next 5 weeks, I was at the Mayo Clinic. So they moved me up to Mayo because I'm still in a back brace. I can't even tie my own shoes or take a shower.
Right.
And so people would bring my boys up to see me. And so that was the relationship for 5 weeks. And when I started talking about leaving there and going back to, my home and taking the kids to football practice and cooking dinner and being a family, everybody was flipping out, because you don't go from stage 4 cancer with your bones breaking back home cooking dinner. And that's what I did. I wanted to do, and I planned on doing that. And basically, another very interesting thing that happened was my phone started ringing because of social media. People said, my wife was diagnosed, my mom was diagnosed, I was diagnosed. What did you do? And I'm like, why are you calling me? And they're like, you survived stage 4 cancer. What did you do? And I started telling my story. And then I started thinking about the things that I did, which were prayer, love. My neighbors bringing food to the house when I had chemo. I thought it was amazing. So I said prayer, love, juicing, essential oils, and keep your body moving. So that's what I started telling people, 5 years ago, after this journey, not knowing what the plan was going to be. And basically, I even made a little business card that said cancer coach on it. And I told people, I didn't go to school for this. I'm just talking from my experiences. But that was amazing, because sometimes that was even more important than their medical plan. That was like, they're like, we needed this. We call it cancer coaching. We call it positive mindset through this mess, because what happens after you get your diagnosis, then you get your plan, and then you're driving home freaking out, or you're sitting on your couch and you're like, what do you do with this now? And so I figured that was my job, was to talk them off the ledge, make them smile, tell them to get up and live and plan a vacation this year, or take a dog for a walk, or whatever it might be. And in this process, my cousin, who lives here in Phoenix, introduces me to a beautiful young lady that has stage 4 breast cancer. My cousin introduces me to this young lady sitting next to me.
And that was 2 years ago.
Beautiful story. Wow. Well, Hannah, how long ago did you guys get, did you get diagnosed? Because he said 2015. How about you?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed a year after him.
Okay.
We didn't meet till 2 years ago. So we both did our cancer journeys, the beginning of them alone. And I also had that very similar experience of being diagnosed and kind of going home and freaking out because I really didn't know anybody else that had cancer. And it was a really scary space to be in, that big unknown. And what had happened is actually the month that Chuck got diagnosed in 2015, I had moved across the country with my 4 teenage sons and my then husband of over 21 years, completely started over here and didn't know anybody. And about a half year after we moved, my husband told me he'd been unfaithful and he wanted out of the marriage. So he basically walked out 2 weeks later. And about a month later, I found a lump in my breast. And so that year I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, got divorced a month later, had my double mastectomy and reconstruction. And then exactly a month after surgery, had to go back to work as an OR nurse full time just to keep my boys alive, because teenage boys don't stop eating. And a year later found out that it had spread to my lungs and some areas in my chest. And so I ended up being diagnosed stage 4. And in that process found out I had been triple positive in the beginning, which has to do with your hormones. And then it changed to triple positive, HER2 negative, which meant I had to have a different kind of treatment. So I ended up being on an oral chemo pill for about 2.5 years and was stable, doing great. During that time period, I also lost my very best friend to suicide. So it was just a lot of years of loss. And in the process of all of that, ended up writing a book about it. And it's called Faith Like Skin. And it's a story about how even in the loss, like where I went with that, and I had to go to my faith and trust in God, because I couldn't hold on to any of this stuff myself. And the more loss I felt, the more I leaned into him. And so I ended up writing a book. And the summer of 2019, I was talking to one of my best friends. And I was like, I don't know how to publish this book. I got to figure this out. And she's like, hey, I don't know why I never told you about my cousin. He just wrote a book about his story, and he's an end-stage cancer survivor. You guys should meet. Maybe he could help you publish it. So I sent him a message on Facebook because she didn't have a cell phone number. And I, said some of the basic things like, I need help publishing my book. And do you think you can give me some tips? And I sent it August 28, 2019, and he got it a full month later.
So what happens is basically on Facebook, I have, like most people, 500, 600, 700 friends from my hometown in Ohio, from friends in LA, things like that. But after my cancer story started emerging, I started doing some speaking events. I started working on my book and launched that. And what happened was my Facebook, my contacts went from that 600 people to 5,000. And so at 5,000, a personal page caps off on Facebook. So I didn't know that. That's why I was wondering, like, why did this guy got a fan page? Because a fan page is unlimited. You can keep adding people, thousands. So I get to 5,000, and people can still contact me through Messenger, but it goes into this weird mailbox. And I say weird mailboxes because, like I said, anybody can send you a message, and I was getting scammers and jammers from all over the world, in this mailbox. And so what I told myself was, once a month I would go in there and I would just briefly read through the messages so I don't miss anything, but delete them all out. So once a month, come home from work, get a beer, sit down, and delete these messages. And I get to this message, and it mentions cancer. It mentions she knows my cousin. It mentions she's writing a book. And I'm mad because I missed this. It's been sitting there for a month. And so right away, I sent a message back. I am so sorry I missed this message. Let's grab a cup of coffee. And I hit send.
And so when I got it, I was actually overseas in the Netherlands, and I was born there. So I have over 75 first cousins. So it was really fun to go back there. I'd go visit one cousin on one side of the family, another cousin on the other. And I happened to be towards the beginning of my trip when I got his message. And I was like, well, sorry, you're going to have to wait like 2.5 weeks before I get home. So what happened was he started stalking me on Facebook and started asking me all these questions. And then we decided to start video chatting. And long story short, we just couldn't stop talking to each other. We totally got along. We totally could understand each other's story. And the crazy part is, you know, I had stage 4 breast cancer diagnosis, and it didn't scare him at all. Like most men wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole because it's scary. You know, you don't know what your future holds. But he had gone through all of this story and had gone through chemo and everything. And so it just didn't even like faze him to consider dating me or eventually ask me to marry him. So it was like just really fun to talk to somebody that had a great love for Jesus, had boys too, had gone through cancer, and just understood all of the feelings of changing bodies, not not necessarily loving that part of it, but just understanding that that's part of the cancer journey, understanding what a new normal is, and how it was just funny when we were talking. And as I was stalking him on Facebook, I noticed he talks about those 5 pillars. I had been doing exact same things on my own. I was juicing, putting essential oils on, moving my body, really leaning into my church and family around me to help me with stuff, which is the love and prayer. And so it was just like, wow, this guy's doing the same stuff I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when she says, the things that you face when you go through cancer, it's everything. It's the physical changes in the body. It's the mental changes in your mind. Everything changes. And so first you've got to find a way to be okay with that new normal for yourself. Then we're talking and through conversation, she's like, who would want to date me now? And I'm looking at her and I was like, I think I would like to be on that list. I would like to be
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the thing is, with a complete understanding of all these things, we can't even believe the conversation. We're blown away. And what we realized real early in the conversation was the foundation that's really, truly important to us in life. That foundation was there. But we also talked about, we both had been married before. We're going to bring all of our garbage to this party and throw it in the yard. So we understand that that's going to happen too. We said the foundation is there and none of this other stuff. It may cause some arguments or whatever it may be, but none of it's a deal breaker. So I proposed and we got married 3 months after we met.
Wow, that is so cool. And
So
you
when
met, it's a good example of the positive or the good that can come out of social media, your example, because you never would have met because your cousin didn't have, phone number to share.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, just think, so that to me, I try to look at the good. So that's a good example. And people focus too much on negative. And that's kind of my perspective. And your journey is amazing. You did mention the 5 pillars. Can you share more specifically what they are that you had in common?
Yeah. So the first one is prayer. We really lean into our faith, and we say this over and over, like cancer and all of the hard stuff in life is way too much for us to carry ourselves. So we have to give it to God and put our faith in him. And it's just, that's the way we get our hope and peace. It's the only way. And then the second part of that is love, is just surrounding yourself with people that love you and you love, and they can help you through all these hard things, whether it's bringing you a meal, praying for you, giving you a hug, just encouraging you every day. It's amazing. Like, that has changed everything. And you're not always gonna have all these family members that support you, or your neighbor or whatever, but there are people that love you and you can ask them for support and help. So I think that's such a big part of it. It's getting to that vulnerable place and asking for help and being very specific about that. And then the third one is juicing, which it's so fun to see that we both did that apart from each other, and we do it every day. We juice every other day and have enough for the next day. And we find it's raw fuel, and we have a great recipe on our website, and a fun little video on how to do it. And it's super simple.
Yeah, basically what happened was, as I started coaching cancer people around the country, a lot of people weren't going to change their diet. We even had people that wouldn't stop smoking, going through cancer, and I can't give it up. I can't stop smoking. So what I wanted to do, or what we wanted to do, was come up with something that everybody could do. And everybody can buy a juicer, everybody can buy the produce, everybody can juice and get this raw nutrition in their body that allows their immune system to do some of the things that it's supposed to do in the first place, even through chemo, even through radiation, even through different types of treatment. You still need fuel and food in your system. And so that's why juicing became such a big part of our one of our pillars.
Yeah, and then the fourth one is essential oils. And I had been using frankincense for years, applying it exactly where my little tumors were. And just Chuck likes to put on his head, neck, and feet. So like there's different ways to use it. And it's also really important to get good quality oils. So we like doTERRA. There's a couple of good ones out there.
I actually put 2 drips on the back of my hand and lick it twice a day. So I'm taking frankincense into my mouth. So that's why you don't want to go on Amazon and buy a $20 bottle of frankincense. It's not pure. It's like going to the grocery store and buying cooking oil for your kitchen. If you buy good quality oil, then the food tastes amazing. If you buy cheap oil, you're probably going to get a stomach ache
and clog your arteries.
Yeah. So I know I'm going to be, putting this in a diffuser and breathing it. I know I'm going to be putting it in my mouth, and I know I'm going to be putting it on my body. So we wanted to find, a very pure form. And so there's a couple companies out there that do a really good job, but we landed on doTERRA's oils. We just like the quality of the product. So,
right, my chiropractor got me on that too. doTERRA.
Yeah. So, and what I in my reading, when a friend of mine, right when I was diagnosed, a friend from California called me and said, are you familiar with frankincense? And I go, I'm not. Besides, they gave it to baby Jesus in the Bible, and so I started reading medical things about it. And what some of them said was it supercharged the cells to fight things off, and it helped detox a lot of the things out of the body. And who needs that more than somebody going through chemo or radiation with all these chemicals and things being implemented into our bodies? Okay, let them go in there and do what they're supposed to do, and then let's get rid of them. Let's detox them out of our system. So that's why essential oils became so important to us.
Yeah, and so the fifth one is move the body. And so I'm going to say this first. I mean, we like to move our bodies in any which way you can. But once we got married, so we got married January 1st, 2020, we actually pushed our desks together when we got home from the honeymoon and decided to start a nonprofit cancer organization just to help coach the positive mindset, which incorporates these 5 pillars. And the reason was because I kept seeing Chuck on the phone all the time while he was doing his landscape design and stuff. And I'm like, how are you doing both of these things? Like, why don't you have a nonprofit? And he's like, I don't know, it just seemed like a big mountain of paperwork to do. And so we really prayed through it, applied, and 4 weeks later got our IRS a letter to say that we'd been accepted. And what happened was, once we figured out our name, Living Hope Cancer Foundation, we also came up with this motto, get up and live. And I think that really incorporates our 5th pillar, is just to move however you can. And whether it's walking in the pool or taking your dog for a walk, or if you've just had surgery, getting on the floor and doing a breathing exercise on YouTube, it just, there's all kinds of ways to move and incorporate additional moving. The more you get strong and the more you heal. And so it's just been a really neat part of our experience.
The thing is, that we really encourage people to do, all 5 of these pillars. I have to add something, that it's not a pillar, because it kind of encompasses this whole program that we talk about. And that's when a person says, okay, I'm going on Amazon, or I'm going to Walmart, I'm going to Target, I'm getting a juicer today. And they get a juicer, and then they get the produce, or they order a bottle of frankincense oil. When you put your boots on the ground, when you put your money into things, it's something really, really cool happens. And when you go from the, I'm feeling sorry for myself because I was diagnosed with cancer and I'm sitting on my couch every day, when you go from that mode to the get up and live mode, I bought a juicer, I'm using the oil, I'm walking my dog, I only could go a block today, but yesterday, but today I went a block, and now I'm going a mile, and now I'm going 2 miles a day on my morning walks. These are the kind of things that we coach. And what happens is
it activates the healing mechanism.
It turns on the power of the mind,
Yeah.
the power of the mind. And that is just huge, huge. You're either at home dying on the couch or in your bed, or you're going to get up and live, and you're going to fight this. And what we definitely know is when you get up and live, the power of the mind clicks in, your body loves that, and the quality of lifestyle starts to change right away.
So what happened was we actually got to put it to the test even more in the last year and a half after we got married. So not only did we come up with these pillars and did them when we just got diagnosed, about 4 months into our marriage, I started having all these symptoms of a high heart rate, trouble breathing, and it was all around when COVID started, but it wasn't COVID. And then my neck started to hurt. And what happened was I found out I had a fractured neck, and it was a really hard time during COVID. Dropped off in the ER, found out it was fractured, had to have emergency surgery. And so now all of a sudden I have a husband who's familiar with fractures in his spine and emergency surgery.
All because of cancer spread in her body. This all started to happen with her. And we kind of make it a joke, like when we do a public speaking event, I tell my story and I go, they said I had two fractured vertebrae in my back, was one of the first x-rays that they got. And I go, I haven't fallen down. Who walks around with a broken back? And she comes on and starts telling her story, and they do a x-ray and a scan, and they got fractures in her neck and her spine. And she says,
who walks around with a broken neck? So it ended up being a pretty serious fusion, and ended up in the ICU, had brace on for 6 to 8 weeks. During that time, we found out it spread to triple negative, which means it is no longer controlled by hormones, really hard to treat. It's most aggressive, difficult breast cancers to treat. And the only thing you can do is IV chemo, which I had not had the experience of. So my hair fell out. And the day I had to shave my head, I got the drape on. Chuck sits me down and shaves my head. And then he hands me the clippers and he's like, it's my turn. And so in solidarity, he shaves his head, and we cried our way through it. And, realized God gave me this man that could walk me through all of these hard things. And at the same time, I also had a tumor on my chest. It's just a little bitty one in the middle of my chest. And it required radiation because it was putting pressure on my pulmonary artery and airway, which was what all those symptoms had been in the beginning, that nobody could figure out what it was. So I ended up having radiation on it and was having trouble swallowing, and it got to the point where I couldn't even swallow my own spit. Ended up in the ER, was hospitalized, and they finally figured out I needed a feeding tube or I would die because I literally couldn't swallow a thing.
She was scheduled for 20 radiation treatments on that area. She got to 10. She got halfway through the radiation program, and it had burned the lining of her throat and stuff so bad that it closed up and she couldn't even swallow her own saliva. She was walking around with a little cup, spitting in this cup. And after 7 days of not eating, I'm like, get in the car, take her to the emergency room. They're like, we've got to do a feeding tube. And I'm like, what's that? They pop a hole in the stomach and put a feeding tube into the stomach. Then you can sit there and pour milkshakes and stuff into the feeding tube to get nutrition in your body. And it saved her life.
So I went through 7 weeks of watching everybody around me eat because I couldn't eat. And eventually I was able to eat more and more, and then able to have it removed. But it was another huge loss, because I am such a foodie. I love food. I love making it. I love eating it. And to be able to just sit and not be able to eat was so hard. So again, and I also lost my voice through all of it. And one of my vocal cords was paralyzed. And so I wasn't able to sing anymore. I could only talk for about 10 minutes a day, or just completely lose my voice. So I had to rest a lot. So it was just these other big, huge losses last year that I really enjoyed. I like talking. I know Chuck likes to talk, but I like to talk too. And so, it was such a hard thing for me to go through. And yet in all of it, it was just stuff I had to let go of, thinking I had control over it, and just keep giving it to God. It was just these lessons I had to learn. And I got my eating back, and I got my voice back. And by October I was singing. And
That wasn't the end of it, though. That wasn't the end of it. We got back to somewhat of a normal, and we, had some really amazing times. We actually went jet skiing. I'm like, can you do this? And she's like, I can't wait. We went zip lining. We started doing these things, and then she started having more pain in her lower back.
Yeah, so around Christmas last year, I found out I had a lower back fracture in my sacrum. And then about 2 months later, had a compression fracture, one level lower than Chuck had. So I ended up having to have a back fusion from that, which ended up being a 7-hour surgery instead of a 3-hour surgery, and woke up in the ICU again. So these crazy moments of just a lot of loss of my body functions. I ended up in a wheelchair for about 4 months, ended up in bed for a good month, not being able to do all the things I was used to doing. We love being active. We love going biking and walking, and even the little things, swimming, whatever we could do, we were doing.
Yeah. So, the thing was, this past almost 2 years now, year and a half, 4 months after we get married, we've been dealing with her cancer spread ever since. It's been one thing after another. It's been a lot of challenges. It's been a lot of hard times, and we're public speaking, and we wrote a third book. We wrote our 2 books separately. We wrote another book about all this stuff going on right now, because it was so far out there. 2 stage 4 cancer people get married, going through all these journeys and struggles. And it was so much that people started asking us, when are you going to write a book about this story, your life right now, which we did. And so basically, we worked on that. We actually worked on this book while she was going through all these challenges. So it's even that much more far out, to think about. Not only did we write a book about the challenges, not only are we living the challenges, but we actually took the time through this to write a book, to share this with people so that they can learn from our experiences. They can watch us transparently through social media. That not only are we getting up and talking in public forums, but we're living it at home. And when Hannah walks in, the first thing they say is, look at you, you look amazing. You're stage 4 triple negative breast cancer. You look amazing. We didn't expect this. And she says, we live it and we coach it.
Yeah, and so we haven't stopped coaching all through these experiences. We actually developed a whole video series of all the things that we coach. It's called the Cancer Roadmap Project. It's on our website. During this summer, I also developed a video series on what to expect with a mastectomy, because I found through my own journey there was not enough information given by either the surgeons or the nurses. And so I just wanted to fill that gap. So there's a lot of fun things that we got to work on, a lot of projects. And I also find that when I have purpose and a lot of things to do that are helping other people, it helps me. So it's just been really neat to be able to keep going and keep coaching out of our own pain and out of our own experience. And it just means so much more to people, because know that we understand where we're coming from.
And I don't want to take that cancer roadmap project videos. I don't never take them lightly. We took our personal experiences, even when we were coaching people, if we were talking about something like, oh my gosh, write that down. We ended up with 50 topics. So we came up with 2 to 3 minute videos. So they're not long. It's not boring. I'm telling you, they're free. They're on our website. It's the emails and the letters that we get and the calls we get, how they've changed people's lives. And that is what it's all about. It's amazing. I read one last night, and the email was about, I'm 8 days into your guys' cancer roadmap project, and I'm blown away. And this is exactly what I needed right now.
Yeah, and our next project is actually write a kind of a workbook for people to go
That's
work
cool.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
what your story is amazing. And you gotta, I mean, what as you're talking, it was bringing back memories for me, right? I was like, oh, I think that's why people who've dealt with cancer, like we connect, right? We understand. And it is so helpful. And I think the biggest takeaway, it to me, is having that support. You've got to you've got Chuck to, I mean, mentally and physically, not just on the faith side, but it's just, that's how I see it. It's I always was hopeful, and you guys are, it's just amazing. And do they know, like for you, Hannah, why it wasn't triple negative before? Do you know?
No,
They don't know
they
what caused it?
don't. I'm kind of an anomaly, a unicorn. And so the interesting thing is I've gone through about 4 oncologists, and I'm on my 5th one, and it's Chuck's oncologist. So she's now going crazy and doing a lot of research for me. And it's really cool to have a good team. That's something we talk about and encourage people a lot too, is just to make sure they have a lot more confidence in their oncologist, because they're working for you and you want them to be working hard for you. And she's done more in about a month and a half than any of my oncologists have ever done for me, as far as like running tests and just being proactive. And it's been so cool. I really love it. And we're like ready to show her another miracle.
Right. That's
Right.
you're going to. I mean, I believe that you will. Just this doctor just is putting, so much time and effort to support you. And I totally agree with you. They called me a zebra. I was a zebra and you're a unicorn. But because I have weird things, like, but I ask questions, and I got different doctors involved, because that's why, because you just know it instinctively, is that the right word? That something, I'm not going to go with the standard stuff. And I love the idea of the supporting yourself through not just the prayer, but juicing and food. And that's kind of what helped me heal, is I saw a doctor who could help with that. And then I went and got certified in nutrition, because I want to make sure I was, to understand it. I'm one of those, I dig deep a little bit, but right. And and people saw that when I went through chemo, I was healing better than you know what I'm saying? Because I went there with an apple and I wasn't eating the donuts that they were leaving, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You're fueling yourself.
Yeah.
And that's such a big part of it. I have a whole history and somewhat in nutrition too. I was a personal chef for a couple of years. And so it's like, we like to incorporate all of that into our life.
That's awesome.
I think it shows. It really shows,
Yeah. Here's the easiest way to put it for anybody that's listening to this right now. You need 2 plans. Okay. You need your medical plan, and that's you asking tough questions, you doing some research on what they told you're diagnosed with. You ask them tough questions, you get a second and third opinion. They work for you. You don't have to hire that doctor just because that's the first person that walked into your life, because a lot of people do. And then, so that's your medical plan. That's over here on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side is your personal plan, and that's what Living Hope Cancer Foundation coaches. And I'll tell you why. If you don't know about the love and the prayer and the juicing and the oils and the get up and live, and your medical plan starts falling through,
the wheels fall off.
I'm getting treatment and it's getting worse. I'm going through this and it's getting worse. If you only have a medical plan and you don't have a personal plan, you're gonna the wheels fall off, and it's a lot of problems. That's the stress and the people calling us completely freaking out. So we start them down the road as soon as we meet them. And now we're getting calls like the day or the 2 days or 3 days after the diagnosis came through. Okay, my wife was just diagnosed. What do we do? What do we do with this? And so we start right away, because we think that the power of the mind, engaging that and getting into these things, is just as important as your medical plan.
Yeah, and the wheels have fallen off for me a lot.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years, on and off. The stuff's changed, the medical plans changed, and if I put all my eggs in that basket, it's like devastating, right? But my personal plan has not changed, and it just keeps growing, and it's
That's
fuller and
good.
healthier. And so that's been the cool part, because that's where I have more of the hope. The hope sits in that, not in maybe what my doctor is doing. It not 100%, so that's something I think we can live out of it. We practice what we preach, and it works.
That's really good. I think it's a great example of what you guys, I mean, it's an extreme situation. And when you mentioned, Chuck, that you were in the lawn care business, do you think that has something to do with cancer?
Who knows?
Right,
These
because I
days.
know two people who had their own businesses and they got cancer later. They're men.
Well,
I don't
when
know.
you're walking around all day with a backpack blower on, breathing
Yeah.
that crap, running mowers, running equipment, spraying chemicals, weed killers and stuff. It could be,
Right, you don't know.
I don't know, stress from a relationship. It could be additives in food these days. Who knows? So there's no really knowing if it's a specific thing or not. All we know is that once that diagnosis comes down, let's get on a positive plan that allows you to smile through cancer. How about that? That's something.
Yes.
When we post stuff on these different support pages, people come out of the woodwork and they're like, I needed that, because if you go on those pages, it's negativity after negativity after negativity. And I'm like, come on, you guys, get up and live, take control of the situation. Can you plan a vacation this year, even though you've got cancer? Can you walk your dog? Can you go jet skiing or zip lining? And we do it. So we show it. So those are important things.
I totally get it. After all my stuff, I had this extreme, I want to do all this adventurous stuff because you're, like you say, get up and live. I wanted to just go do all this, and it was so much fun, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it's
Yeah.
about. And even though everything is not perfect, I got to make time for that. And I always talk about I love nature's therapy for me.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
what I make.
There's a lot to be
everybody-
said for ocean air or sunshine on your face, or just being around, smelling a nice. I go up to a rose, I see a rose bush, I bury my face in that rose and just take this big huge breath, because I know there's something healing about that rose, the smell of that rose.
God put it on earth for a reason.
Yeah, and we like activity so much that I come up with this crazy idea, because I'm thinking we need to get more people knowing who we are and what we do. So I'm going to ride a bike in March. I start in March. I'm going to ride a bike 3,000 miles from California to Florida. And this is really interesting because it started the idea, and our budget right now is not much. We have a cancer foundation. We don't even give ourselves a paycheck. We're still building this thing. So the money goes back into coaching people for free and things like that, traveling to speak. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to ride a bike across the country. I didn't know that road bikes cost like $4,000 or $5,000. So I found a used road bike on one of the ad things on social media, and we sold Hannah's electric wheelchair and bought a road bike.
Are you going in a group or by yourself?
Hello,
Oh,
no,
no.
it's the Chuck and Hannah show.
I'm driving the RV we don't have yet.
She's going to drive the RV that we don't have yet. And I'm going to
Gotcha.
ride 50 miles a day for 2 months across the country.
That is so cool.
We're going to invite people to ride with us. We're going to invite people to fundraise with us. We're going to invite the news, local news, national news. We just want to get everybody involved so they have an awareness of what cancer coaching really is and how important it is for people going through cancer or maybe even other challenges in their life as well.
That is so cool. It's so, I'm like, hope you come to Atlanta and I'll go ride with you. I'm not a good bike
I
rider.
think we do
I'm a
have
runner.
We,
I'll jog.
We will be in that area.
we're a little lower. We're actually, it comes across lower through Texas and Florida, but you definitely can come down. You got to have a bike though. I don't care what kind of bike. I'm not,
Can I
we're
run?
not,
I'm a
we're-
runner. I'm a runner.
I know, but you can't run as fast as I can ride. You got to keep up with me. I'd have
You
to,
can borrow
Right, I
my
do have a bike. It's probably needs new tires, but
okay. Take it to the shop and have them tune it up,
yeah,
start
my
training a
husband
little
can help
bit.
too.
A
That's
half-
so cool.
So each day I'm riding 50 miles. So you can either ride 25
in the morning.
in the morning or the afternoon, or 50 the whole day with me.
That's
And
cool.
we're going to do this to let everybody know who we are and what we do.
I think it's so cool that you're doing that as a together, and you have the RV, and it's just showing you like you're getting up and living, you're being a positive role model for everybody. And it is, people I think focus too much. I mean, I know cancer is scary and all this stuff, but to focus on being here and and it's about the quality.
Yeah. And how about two stage 4 people
Yes,
going
it's
3,000 miles across the country?
it's amazing.
It is.
What city in Florida are you going to end up in? I'm just curious.
St. Augustine.
Okay.
You dip one tire, you dip your back tire in the ocean in San Diego, and then you dip the front tire in the ocean in St. Augustine. And
That is so cool.
That's the ritual. That's
We need some positive information, or media coverage or something like this,
Yeah.
and not just focus on all the bad stuff. And
Yeah.
so this is cool. So we talked about your 5 pillars. So what is the one for each of you, the biggest takeaway from cancer? I know you created this foundation. I was just curious what the one takeaway for each of you with your experiences.
I would say it's not a sentence, it's a situation. It's not a death sentence, and we've coached people for 2 years that stayed in the fear mode, and 2 years later they're still doing that. And if they would have started changing, because you have to get it in your mind that it's a situation and you can live with it, and we're praying that you can live through it, that there's going to be a survivorship. But I think the biggest thing that I try to get out there is it's not a sentence, it's a situation.
All right. And mine is something that God told Chuck. I think the day that you had your miracle was, as long as you're alive, be fully alive. And that is just so powerful to me, because we're only given today. We don't know what tomorrow looks like. And so to live it fully, live every day fully for him, that's my goal every day. And so if I go to bed spent, I am so happy. And I don't care if I'm completely exhausted at the end of the day. I've lived a full day. And so that's been a big change for me, is not living for next week or next month, but just do today really well.
That is so awesome. That is so cool. So where can people learn more about you, or how can they contact you? What's the best way?
So our website is getupandlive.org. And there are forms to fill out in there that you can email us. There's a way to access the videos through email, and then you can watch the whole series for free. Everything's free. We have a lot of different pages for you to explore.
And if you want to just, keep up with us, what's going on, laugh with us, cry with us, all the above, Instagram, Facebook, our Living Hope Cancer Foundation pages. And then on TikTok, just type in Chuck Keels, and it's wild. It's wild. My TikTok is wild. I'm the boss on TikTok. It's fun. And it's so cool because you wouldn't believe the positivity that, TikTok, when I first heard of it, years ago, it was a negative place. And then all of a sudden people took over and said, hey, I'm going to share my cancer journey. Hey, I'm going to share my Christianity. I'm going to share my faith. All these things started happening. And now I got 24,000 followers on TikTok following this story. And it's turned into a really, really fun place. So come see us on TikTok as well.
That is so cool. And I've seen that people like is so popular because of the clips, right? You don't have to be sitting
Right.
down for so long looking at. That is just so cool. And for the listeners, I will have the links to all the URLs they mentioned, just to make sure we didn't miss anything. And you guys are a great inspiration, and I'm so happy to have you on Real Things Living, and you understand why I call it Real Things Living, right?
Yes.
Because we got to live it while we're here.
Amen.
Thanks again,
Absolutely.
everybody.
Thank you for
Thank you so
inviting us.
much.
You're welcome.